morning, everyone. Welcome to Oak Grove UMC. It's so wonderful to see you all. And my name's Stori. For those of you who don't know me, I'm not Pastor Dylan, obviously. But I'm so excited to be with you this morning to tell some stories, to engage with each other, to build community together. No matter how you come into this space today, if you come with questions and doubts, if you come exhausted, if you come excited, if you come weighed down with grief or floating with joy, if you come having been rejected in some faith communities, if you've come knowing acceptance your whole life, whatever stories you bring in here today, they are all welcome. Whatever burdens you bring in, they're all welcome. I hope you all come knowing that you are loved, you are accepted, you are celebrated just as you are. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Let us join together in the call to worship. I wait patiently for God, who turned to me and heard my cry, who lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire, and set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Sing a new song. Our mouths are full of the praise of God. Blessed are we when we make the Lord our trust, when we do not turn aside to false gods. Sing of all your many wonders, O God, to many to declare them all. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but our ears you have pierced, and our body you have prepared for us. please take a moment in the next few minutes to fill out a prayer or praise card. You'll find them on the pew back right in front of you. If you're worshiping with us in person, the ushers will collect them during the next song. If you're worshiping with us online, type your prayer or praise in the comments and they will be read. And please don't worry if we miss reading yours out loud. It will still get to our prayer chain. So now let's join together in our prayer hymn. Pass me not, O gently Savior.
Pass me not, O gentle Savior, hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling, do not pass me by. Savior, Savior, hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling, do not pass me by. Trusting only in thy merit, would I seek thy face. Heal my wounded, broken spirit, save me by thy grace. Savior, Savior, hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling, do not pass me by. Thou the spring of all my comfort, more than life to me. Whom have I on earth beside thee? Whom in heaven but thee? Savior, Savior, hear my humble cry. While on others thou art calling, do not pass me by.
We'd like to start our time of prayer with some prayer requests from congregation. And I see two here. One is for our daughter who is so tired, moving as a single mom with 4 children and working full time. And that is a heavy burden. Prayers for her. Please pray for my Aunt Cynthia's heart health. And that is signed Cam. So Aunt Cynthia's heart health is very important. And also I'd like to put into prayer what's going on in Maui again. We prayed for it last Sunday, but let's lift that up again. We'll have some follow-up a little later on what we can do to help reach out to those people. So now let's join together in our prayer of the people. Please pray with me. God of grace, we are grateful for the gift of your love, a love that has no bounds, a love that keeps reaching out to us, calling us to you. We are more than your people. We are your beloved children. You reiterate throughout Scripture your readiness to hear us when we pray to you.
The scripture this morning is from Esther, chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive with Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who is known also as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Hegai. Esther also was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the harem. God's word for all people.
That was impressive. The names? You nailed the name. Yes. Just gonna move this over here. Good morning, everybody. Again, hello. All right, so today, I am going to be telling a little bit of a different kind of story. It will connect back to the story we just read, just track with me. So at Storyline Community, the other church where I work that has a partnership with Oak Grove UMC, used to meet in the building, in the classrooms back there. Oak Grove UMC has been working alongside Storyline for several years now, just a very wonderful partnership. And I got started at Storyline the same time I got started at Oak Grove UMC, so I experienced just so much growth and so much love from both communities. So it's very exciting for me today to give you just a little glimpse of what we're doing at Storyline. So we've been in this series called The Secret Life of Beasts, where we have been telling the story of organisms and creatures and animals, some right outside our door like a crow, some right underneath our feet like fungi, some at the very bottom of the ocean like an octopus. And we've approached these creatures and have studied what are their what is the creative adaptability that helps them survive? What is the thing that makes them unique, the thing that also makes them deeply connected to their ecosystem? And we've been telling the stories of those creatures through the lens of Scripture. So I'm super excited to tell this story today with you. So there are a few places to me that are as hostile and as scary as the ocean. On a list of places you will not find me, scuba diving is at the top of the list. I do not go beneath the surface. If it goes above my waist in the ocean, I have now gone too far, and I immediately back up. I respect those that can kind of go into the depth and explore the coral reefs. Not me. I respect the ocean. What they got going on in there is none of my business. I keep my feet on earth. I do not have gills. I have no way to fight a shark. It's kind of how I feel. It's also scary to me because it's so vast. It's so many creatures there. Like, I'm not convinced there aren't actual sea monsters. There's no way for me to know. Does anyone know how much of the ocean we've actually charted as humans? You can shout out your guesses if you want. Wow, we got a first guess. Whoever said 5%. 5%. 5% of the ocean. And it's right there. It's so close, and we only know of it. I read somewhere that we know more about outer space than we do about ocean. Yeah, right? It's just so big, it's so scary. And I think, what kind of animals, what kind of organisms would thrive there? How must you have adapted over time to be able to thrive in a place that is so dark, that is so cold, that has trillions of tons of water pressure? I'm making up that number, trillion, I don't know. A lot of tons of water pressure pressing down on you. How do you survive? It's also the place where there's probably the animals that are the most alien to us, too. The ones that are the most different from us. Yes, there are some we have more in common with than others, like whales and dolphins. What do we have in common with them? Yes, we're mammals. Yes, we give birth somewhat similarly, take care of our babies somewhat similarly. They're also community-based animals. Their parents will raise them and stay with them, and sometimes they will stay with their families their whole lives. And that's something maybe we recognize in ourselves. So it's no wonder that those are the animals that we attribute traditional understandings of intelligence to. We say these are the smart animals. And they're the ones that tend to look the closest like us that we say are the smart animals. And that's not for no reason. Our traditional markers of intelligence include things like being able to form connection, being able to form language, being able to form memories, and being able to plan ahead. Those are all considered signs of higher intelligence. And one of the theories around why some animals evolved with intelligence is that animals that live in community needed it more. They needed to learn how to navigate the social dynamics around them, to know who's in charge, who's going to protect me, who is on my side, and who's my enemy. So they developed what we would consider intelligence. Has anyone watched the show Ted Lasso? Does anyone remember who Ted says is the happiest animal on earth? Goldfish. Why? Why is the goldfish the happiest animal on earth? Short memory. He says it's got a 5-second memory, it moves on and it's done. Happiest animal on earth. And that might be true, but it's also why we don't consider the goldfish intelligent, because it has a 5-second memory. But there is an animal in all of this that lives in the bottom of the ocean that throws a little wrench into this theory about intelligence. Because we have this other creature. I'm going to bring out my creature. I couldn't bring a real octopus in, so I'm bringing out my friend here. The weird and wonderful octopus. The creature that scientists and biologists say is probably the closest thing to alien life we're ever going to get to be able to study, because they're so vastly different than us. A creature with 3 hearts. What do you need 3 hearts for? 3 hearts and 9 brains. They got their main brain here in their mantle. For a long time, I thought this was their nose when I was little. I thought but it's their mantle. And this is where they store all of their organs and their main brain. So if I said it had 9 brains, where do you think the other 8 are? In their tentacles, yes. They have little mini brains in each of their tentacles. So for us, most of our neurons, if you had to guess where our neurons live, where are they? Our brains, yes. For the octopus, only 1/3 of their 500 million neurons are in their brain. The rest of them are in their tentacles. These incredible things that can taste, can multitask. I've read stories about octopuses that are they're solving a puzzle with this hand. This hand is feeding themselves. This hand is punching fish. Literally, they punch fish. They're petty creatures, and I appreciate that about them. So they can be doing 8 different things fully in a way that we can't, because they have specific little neurons in here. I also read about an octopus that, when he was being chased by a predator, ripped off his own arm, threw it, and because their arms keep moving, the predator chased the arm and left the octopus alone. And then what happened in a few weeks? grew back his whole little arm with no deficits. It works just fine, has all the same little neurons. An incredible creature who has blue blood instead of red. So when I say they're like an alien to me, they are literally like an alien. It's blue because they are, let's see, make sure I get this right. Their blood contains copper instead of iron, and it moves the oxygen most efficiently through their body. Creatures that can look like, Gwen, can I get the next slide? This little guy, that little guy has enough venom to kill 30 people. And you can squish it with your thumb. I don't recommend it. Creatures that are incredibly solitary and they don't live in any type of community because they're cannibals. They try to eat each other. So octopuses decide to go live by themselves because it seems like the best way to survive. Creatures that can grow up to 600 pounds, but because they have no bones, they can fit through the size of a quarter. Gwen, we're gonna get a look at it, actually.
This is gonna be cool. You see that spot? No way. You can't get to. You are wrong, my friend. You're a kid. No. He can go through anything that his beak will fit through. When you watch, he's gonna go right through there. Look at him. He's going for it. I'm telling you right now. And watch, he'll change color too. They just kind of turn it white on the left side. He is not. He is just working his way through. I'm dead serious. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's popping. Look at that. He's popping through. Yeah. Did you see an alley? Alley. Oh, never mind. He is kind of squeezing. Oh my gosh. There's his nose. He's just all the way through it now. Except for, just the top. Just his nose, yeah. Back off the thing. Watch.
I can't even get this through the size of a quarter. But they can do that because they have no bones. They're invertebrates. So when I started studying this creature that could not be any less like me, no bones, 3 hearts, 8 brains, I didn't expect to find actually that I felt like I had a lot in common with the octopus at the end of the day. And I wonder if you will too when we're done telling the story of the octopus. First, what I found really interesting about them is that their existence is kind of a miracle. Octopuses, unlike many other animals, they don't raise their babies. They lay their eggs at the end of their life. So the eggs are laid, if they're fertilized, the male octopus goes off to die, and the female octopus times her death to happen after the eggs hatch. So she'll keep them safe while they're eggs, but after they're hatched, they're on their own. And they are about the size of a grain of rice, and they float off into the ocean. What do you think happens to most of those thousands of babies in the ocean? They die. So many things can kill me in the ocean. I can't imagine for a little rice-sized baby octopus. They die. But yet a handful of these tiny pieces of rice manage to survive and grow to full size. They live about 2 years. Is considered a long life for an octopus. In captivity, they can sometimes live to 5. So they live very short lives. But a few make it to the octopus, what we know as the octopus. And that got me thinking, really? We aren't so different. When I looked and studied the odds that any of us would be here, across the span of human history, that we would all be here together in this room, that we would even exist, it was 1 in 400 quadrillion. I don't even know what that number means. I have no reference for the number quadrillion. Apparently it's just a fraction above zero that we are all here together in this room today. Kind of like a little octopus rice. Now, octopus came by this survival in very fascinating ways. You see, octopuses are considered to be a part of the mollusk family. Does anyone know any other creatures that are in the mollusk family? Clams, yes. Snails, oysters, yes. What do most of those animals have in common? They have shells. But you can see the octopus does not have a shell, because an early ancestor of the octopus, about 150 million years ago, probably a little gelatinous creature, peeked out of his shell, looked at the ocean and said, I think I can take it. And an early ancestor of the octopus left his shell. Why do you think maybe it would be a good idea to have a shell if you're an octopus? Protection, safety, sharks. They are soft-bodied creatures. Not a bone, not a talon. They got a little beak. But, I mean, for the most part, they're pretty easy pickings. So staying in a shell would have made sense. But because they left their shell, something incredible happened. Because they left their protection, they started to adapt. They became mobile. They became quick. They became agile. And they became what most members of the mollusk family are not, by our standards. They became intelligent. They became smart. They became incredibly perceptive. They accepted the deficit and said, I'm going to leave my shell, which would be safe. And they developed a few superpowers. And again, I wonder if you'll recognize yourself in some of these superpowers. So like I said, the first big one is that they're incredibly observant. They use their 8 suckers to take in the world around them with incredible dexterity. They use their sense of touch and smell to form memories. Can I get the next slide, Gwen? They've even been known whenever they've formed a relationship with a human, even though they're solitary, that they will come back and play with them because they have tasted them and smelled them and know they're safe. So they will come back to the same human over and over again, even though they live in isolation. They will play with them, they take head scratches like that, because they have formed memories from their sense of taste and smell. It led to them being incredible problem solvers and escape artists. Gwen? Check this out. There are very few places you can keep an octopus that an octopus cannot find a way out. Whoop! It's why keeping octopuses in aquariums is a big investment, because you have to really make sure they are secure. I've heard stories of octopuses escaping their tank, going into another tank, eating the fish in that tank, then going back to their tank, closing their tank, and just being like, nothing to see here. I don't know where your fish went. Because that octopus not only learned how to get out of his tank, also learned the schedule of the security guard. So he knew when the security guard was gone, and it took them a while to figure it out. Like, where are our fish going? Researchers have even observed octopuses playing, which is very interesting, because one of the theories about play is that we develop it because we live in community. But the octopus does not. And yet they play. They also are very curious. In captivity, they've been known to get very excited about new objects. They've stolen buckets. They've stolen watches. They've even tried to steal a security guard's gun once. Gwen, can I get the next slide? You can see this octopus being very curious about this camera. And he's like, give it. I want it. Oh, it doesn't taste good. He swims away. But they get very excited when they see new objects. Also, because they lack bones and the special way their skin is designed, The octopus can change their shape, their texture, their size, even to fit into whatever container they have. And they can do it in the blink of an eye. There's a few animals that can change their color, but not as fast as an octopus, and not as with as many patterns as an octopus can do. And again, they can not only change the color, they can change the texture to look like a rock, or to look like coral, or to look like algae. Gwen, will you play the video? And I want you to clock how many changes you can see in this octopus. A lot, you might, but notice how fast it happens too. What's super impressive about this, when they studied the eye, sorry, one sec. The eye of the octopus, they found that octopuses are colorblind. The way they can sense the colors is through taste and smell, through their tentacles, which blew my mind that these creatures are colorblind. Now, our skin might not do that. But I wonder if maybe this is a survival technique that you recognize. One that maybe you're familiar with, that hypervigilance, that hyper-awareness, that constant checking out your environment to see, is it safe? That feeling of, do I need to change something about myself to escape this room unscathed? Do I need to hide something about myself to stay safe in the space I'm in? I know for me, as a woman in ministry, I felt this before. I know there have been times when I've had to make myself smaller, when I was in denominations that didn't affirm my calling. I was told I didn't belong, so I had to make myself fit in the way a boneless octopus does. And I've had to squeeze out to escape in places that weren't safe for me. There's times in my ministry I felt like this octopus. Can I get the next slide? Whoop. Trying to make myself fit into spaces that were not built for me. But I had to figure it out. And then there are times like now, my work here at Oak Grove and my work at Storyline, when I feel like the next slide. I feel billowy and bright. And I can bring my full self and my full colors into a room. And I can trust that it's going to be safe for me. And I have to work really hard not to judge that other version of myself. The one that tried to squeeze into those places and pretended I was something I wasn't. I have to try really hard to say, she was doing what she needed to do to survive in those places. And maybe she built some survival skills that I should celebrate and not resent. Another secret to the octopus's survival is that the octopus are also good planners. They know when they are the most vulnerable. Again, this is considered a sign of that intelligence we talked about. So all those years ago when they decided to leave their shell, they knew that they were accepting something can get me. So they had to learn to start planning ahead. And octopuses have been known when they leave their den to take shells and coconut pieces and trash sometimes. And it reflects an amazing intelligence in animals to be able to say, I know what's waiting for me out there. I better bring something with me to protect myself when I'm out of my den. Glenn, can we get the next? So like this. Taking those little coconut pieces. Ooh, predator, not today. And he rolls away in his coconut pieces. Because he knows that it's not safe for him. I wonder if that's something you recognize too. Do you plan ahead? Do you think and rethink every possible scenario? The people, the conversations, the type of person in a room? And have you asked yourself before, what armor do I need to bring into this room to be safe? Have you asked yourself before, what parts of myself are the most vulnerable and need to be protected when I leave my den? And like I said, despite being curious and playful, the octopuses are incredibly solitary. They know there are many things that can kill them, including other octopuses. They take a while to build trust with a creature or a human. And they don't really do it outside of captivity. And anytime I talk about community, this is something I try to remember. I am someone I think we need community to survive. I think community is important. But I also think sometimes in my eagerness to beat that drum, I forget that community is also where we receive our deepest wounds. Community protects us, and it can also kill us. And some of you might come in here with that experience. Like I said, octopuses are cannibals. They've had their own people, take little bites out of them. And they learned, I need to live by myself. So I want to honor however you come into this room. If you come in with that understanding of community, that I'm grateful you're here and that you've trusted this community. Because it can be really hard and it can be really, really scary. And I think this kind of survival, this kind of slippery survival that the octopus has, the squishy, boneless survival, is not one we look at with admiration often. We like strength. We like full frontal attacks. We like the ability to square off with someone face to face and tell it like it is and tell them off. We don't consider the octopus strong when we talk about strong creatures. And I think that's a mistake. I think that it's also not based in reality, and it's also not based in our own scripture. Which brings us to the story of Esther. I love this story because for the first time, having read about the octopus, when I approached the story of Esther, I was like, Esther's an octopus. She reminds me of an octopus in the best way. So this story of Esther is an odd one. It's a humorous one. It's a scary one. And it's one where a young Jewish girl plays all the powerful men in her life for fools by acting like an octopus. So you guys heard a little bit of it at the beginning, that the powerful, cruel, silly king gets rid of his wife. You guys might be familiar with this story. He gets rid of his wife because she's not obedient, right? And he says, I'm going to get a new wife, and she's going to be beautiful, she's going to be young, and she's going to be so obedient. He said he's a silly, silly, cruel king. And Esther, who's a Jew, ends up in this group of women that are essentially trafficked into the palace. And but she doesn't fight full. She doesn't punch anyone. She doesn't resist. She doesn't refuse. She charms. She goes in and she hides the fact that she's Jewish because Mordecai tells her to. Like an octopus, she changes her shape. She changes her texture, she changes her color, and says, I'm not Jewish. I'm like any of the other girls here, because she knows that's what's going to keep her safe. And ultimately, we know that the king chooses Esther as his queen, right? She's the most charming, she's the most beautiful, he thinks she's the most obedient. And while all this is happening, there's this other guy, Haman, who hates the Jews and is trying to kill the Jews, right? And then Esther gets wind of this. She hears that the Jews are in danger. And she's afraid, rightfully so. This is a king who has not treated his wives well in the past. And this isn't a marriage where she can just go to him and say, hey, I'm Jewish. Because they didn't hang out. They didn't particularly like each other as far as we know. They weren't in love. She can't just go to the king and be like, hey, can I live? She's got to wait to be called by the king. And if the king doesn't call her before he decides to kill the Jews, then they're out of luck. So, Esther's afraid, but she goes to the king. But she doesn't tell the king, she doesn't do the full frontal attack. She doesn't say, hey king, don't kill the Jews, I'm a Jew. You don't want me to die, do you? She's tricky. She's slippery. She invites the king and Haman to dinner, and she slowly is turning up the boiling pot on Haman. And this has been my first time reading this story where I caught how clever she is, just how deeply clever. Because Haman starts to brag. He's like, I'm safe. I got invited to dinner with the king and queen. Nothing can touch me. She invites him to dinner again. And each time she says, I'm not going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you next time on what I want. And Haman is feeling more and more confident, more and more ridiculous, more and more silly. And Esther at this point is like an octopus in a shark tank. She has very little power. Men that will kill her the second they can. And it's in this moment, when she's got them all drunk and wind up, she tells the king, save my life. Don't kill me. Please. And I love what she actually tells him. Can we get the next slide? She says, if I found favor with you, your majesty, and it pleases you, grant me my life and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. And I love this part, because for the first time I heard this in like a clever, like manipulative tone, in a good way. She's like, if we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have kept quiet. I wouldn't have bothered you, king. You're far too powerful. You're far too smart. I wouldn't distress you for something that silly. Like, she's still stroking his ego, because that's the power she has in this moment. That's the power she has not to die, is to manipulate, to squeeze her way into these spaces, to stroke the ego of the predator that wants to kill her. And I could just imagine her like working up the tears and like, please, please don't kill me, king. Like very much working up the damsel, and the king just being like, oh yeah, this is my pretty obedient wife. I'm not gonna let her die. And I love that we have this story of survival in the Bible, where we don't see somebody who is militarily strong, who is physically strong. She has no power in this culture that oppresses her as a woman and a Jew. And still she survives, because she's sneaky, because she's squishy. She gets in and out of spaces like an octopus does. She has learned these skills, I'm sure, as a woman and a Jew under oppression. And this is what I want to leave you with. I wonder what skills of survival you have had to develop. I wonder what skills of survival you find yourself resenting. I wonder what skills of survival you have had to grow because you left a shell that might have been safer. What superpowers do you have, like the octopus and like Esther, that help you survive? Yes, it would be great if no one had to change their texture, no one had to change anything about them. It would be great if no one had to lie about who they were. But what we see from this story of Esther is that sometimes you don't have a choice. And I hope what you don't hear is that deception is good. That's not my point. My point is I hope you don't resent what you've had to do to survive. What has brought you here? And it reminds me of the words of Jesus when he sends out his disciples. He says, I'm sending you out like into a wolf's den. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. We have these two seemingly contradictory things. So as you hear this, I hope you don't hear, oh, go out and lie about yourself. But rather, learn your superpowers. Learn what has helped you survive. And I hope you can take some space to celebrate it. Because if we can have empathy and find commonality with this guy, I hope you can find it for yourself and for each other.
Together we serve, united by love, inviting God's word to the glorious peace. We work and we pray through sorrow and joy, extending your love to the last of the least. We seek to become a beacon of hope, a lamp for the heart and a light for the feet. We stand by there to let love shine through, until we see Christ in each person we meet. We welcome the scarred, the wealthy, the poor, the busy, the lonely, and all who need care. We offer a home to those who will come, our hands quick to help, our hearts ready to dare. Together by grace we witness and work, remembering Jesus in whom we grow strong. Together we serve in spirit and truth, remembering love is the strength of our soul.
We come to this time in worship when we worship God with our gifts and our tithes and respond to Him in the generous way that He has given us. We believe that giving money is a spiritual practice, another way of loving one another by sharing what God has first given us. The money is used to fund our ministries in the church and in the community. We can give through the Vanco Mobile Faith app on our website, by mailing a check, or by dropping the check in the plate on your way out. But the first act of stewardship is to care for yourself and your family. So please, do not give what you cannot afford. Please stand and join in the doxology.
Praise
to travel, but our experience doesn't always bear that out. We know you see a bigger picture than we do. As we bring you our offerings this day, we affirm your presence with us in the pits of despair, as well as the palaces of plenty. We give with gratitude in His holy name. Amen. Please be seated. As we look at the next steps in the church, we're looking at what we can move forward in action and do. And we want to highlight work for the church. And we do have a yard work party Saturday. It's August the 26th, which would be next Saturday, from 8 to 11 a.m. They'll continue removing some more of the overhanging apple tree. They do need a chainsaw for that, and a lot of the vines that have grown over the chain link fence from our neighbor's yard need loppers, pruners, thick gloves. But please let Jean Fairbairn know if you can help us even for a few hours, so that will help serve your church in our environment. A note on the fall Bible study. Our 8-week study starts on Tuesday, September the 19th at 1 o'clock, and Fairbairns have graciously opened their home for the location. The study text is Invitation to the Old Testament, and that's by Cecilia Brewer and John Tabor, which is in your announcements. And so if you want to order your book for yourself, that's great, but we would like to know if you do need to have the church order a book, because we're placing an order soon. And I've placed a sign up down at the last pew of the church, so as you exit the church down the center aisle, if you want to attend, just put your name, and then if you need a book, let us know, so we can place that order. The other thing I want to hold up is relief for Maui. We're very familiar with the tragedy that's going on in the beautiful state of Hawaii, specifically around in Maui. And we have an attempt within the church. It says our church is trying to organize support, there are 2 other options to help residents of Maui. And you'll see them in your announcements. If you want to donate to the United Methodist Church, it has set up a Lahaina relief plan. You should know that one of the churches that was destroyed in Lahaina was a Methodist church. And we have very direct and specific involvement beyond just our Christian compassion. There's a Hawaii-based Strong Maui fund, which Dave and Gwenda Richards Oshiro connected with through their connection, and they're also a good resource to connect with. So I would suggest you give that some prayer and thought, and see what you can do to add to the support for Maui. I would like to thank too everybody that helped with worship. We have a wonderful music team, and one of our new team members, Liz, is back with us today, and Harrison's good work, and Stori's very interesting a message. I still feel I'm living within an Octopus world. And certainly the ushers, the AV team, and those that do a fellowship for us after church. We want to thank the kitchen team. So thank you for everybody that helped with worship today. So let's please stand for the closing hymn, Guide My Feet, Lord.
Guide my feet
go from this place with your 2 arms, your 2 legs, your 1 brain, and your 1 heart. May you be an octopus this week. May you find your superpower. May you find grace for how you have survived and grace for how your neighbor has survived. Go in peace.
Keep breathing.